right, we're going to get our hamburger started really quick. So this is all the hamburger that was left over in the old freezer. So this is all from, yeah, these are all from 2020. Sorry. For a second, I saw 2022, but it says used before 2022 because they say only to keep it for a year, but, or 2 years. So we are going to cook this up in this big pot. Because we just got another third of a cow, and in the fall, actually winter, and then this was what was left in the old freezer we're trying to clean out, and then this is from the grocery store. You can tell the difference in the quality, but I'm going to go ahead and put this with this to get it out of my freezer up here. So now we have a big pot of hamburger. I'm going to put some water in it. And I'm going to add water just so it's easier to drain out the fat and help it to cook. I don't expect there to be a ton of fat because our hamburger from TJ in 2020 was pretty lean. But this hamburger from the store is pretty fatty, so it'll help that. But this will help it cook faster and more evenly. So I am not going to, I lost my lid. I am not going to season it or anything right this second. I am going to season it when I break it apart to go in jars because I want to add some taco seasoning to some jars. So for now, we're just going to let this cook. Okay, so I'm still seeing a little bit of red in here. So that means it's not done all the way down in there. But what I'm going to do is just go ahead and start breaking it up here, which will help it cook all the way through and give me a better consistency so I don't have like big chunks and little chunks. We're just going to try to break it all up. And mostly what I'm going to use this for is I want to do some taco meat with the seasonings already in it. And I have some taco seasoning packets in my pantry. And then I also will keep the rest just plain. I may do some with some Italian seasoning just for like to add to spaghetti sauce and stuff. But I usually put my seasoning in my sauce, so I don't know that that's necessary. But I think most of this will be either tacos or spaghetti or manwich maybe. We don't do a lot of that. Vegetable soup, because I have not canned a lot of meat. And I don't think I've ever canned hamburger. My mom has, and it changes the texture of it a bit. So it's a lot softer and less grainy. It's different. So it's better to use in recipes. Now I am going to try making some beef stew today and canning it, but I know it will make the beef stew super soft, but I like tender beef stew, so I'm thinking that will be okay. So we're going to try to do that too. That one will be a new one for me, because like I said, I usually can just ingredients and then build my meals from the jars of ingredients. I don't typically can whole things, But I like the idea of a beef stew starter where I can just heat it up and thicken with arrowroot or cornstarch afterward and be good to go, which would be great for quick lunches because I usually work from home a lot during the week. So we're going to try that to get rid of the rest of the beef stew in that one old freezer. So this is looking pretty good. I'm going to let it go for maybe another 3 minutes. I don't want to overcook it, but I want to make sure it's cooked through. So while the hamburger is finishing cooking, I'm going to go ahead and get the jars ready. And I will probably try to do all of this in pint jars because you don't really need a ton of meat when you're adding it to something. So I think if it's packed into pint jars, that would be plenty. So I'm going to wash these up and get them heating. And I know my canner holds 9. And I already have 3 over here washed that I had left over from the potatoes. And the main reason why I'm washing these jars is I put them away clean. However, on the shelves, if they're not like upside down or with lids on them, they can get dusty. And some of these did not have lids on them. I'm not sure why, but I mean, I don't put lids on them, but I'm not sure why they weren't upside down because usually I do that. The only thing I can think is I needed to get them out of the way, and so I had put them in the box on the shelf right side up so they could finish drying, because that sounds like something I would do. And then I just never went back over and flipped them, but I try to put them upside down, and then that way they are clean. And then sometimes I can just like rinse them out, but I wanted to make sure these were completely dust free and clean. So I just went ahead and re-washed them, and my water is getting really hot. So I will put them down in here and fill them up in just a minute. I've moved over here because I needed a little more room. But I now have the canner on the stove. Okay, I went ahead and drained that and brought my water over. So what I'm going to do now is put some of this over into this bowl. And we're going to add some taco seasoning. And since I added about half, and it was, what, 5, 6, maybe 7-ish pounds, I'm going to go ahead and add 2 of these, because I'm going to guess that this is probably 2.5, 3 pounds. Yeah, more like 3. I used the wrong spoon. I'm sorry. So I'm going to mix this up really good. Get my chopper for any bigger chunks that I find. So I usually freeze my meat, but I do like having already made meat, and sometimes I will cook it and refreeze it. But on busy nights, you still have to remember to thaw that out. So with trying to get better at scheduling meals ahead and not eating out when we get crazy busy and I forget, that's why I'm starting to can a lot of meat with ideas that I can come home and, let's say spaghetti. Spaghetti is like one of my go-to meals when I'm in a hurry, because I can just brown up frozen meat, drain it off, add the homemade sauce that I canned, and boil pasta. Well, if this is already cooked and all I have to do is throw it in the pan with the sauce on it, heat that up while the noodles are boiling, that cuts down at least 10 minutes because I don't have to cook the meat first. So, and for tacos especially, I could just come home, heat this up in the microwave for 2 minutes if I needed to, and pop it over some shells with some fresh veggies, and we're good to go. So that's why I am trying to do some of this in addition to cleaning out the freezer, which is much needed. All right, so let's get these in jars. Okay, so I do not have enough for another jar. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to the taco meat for dinner tonight. And that frees up that pan for beef stew. So I only got 6 pints, which, you know, if you figure a pound per pint, that's about how many pounds of meat I started out with. I think it was over that. It was, I want to say 6.5, maybe 7. So now you know about a pound per pint jar. And I'm doing a ½ teaspoon of canning salt, which is not necessary, especially for the ones that have the taco seasoning, but it is low sodium taco seasoning. So, and I do that so I can control the salt. So I did put a ½ teaspoon of salt in there. So I'm going to add our water. And I did not pack it overly tight, but because they're so small, it's like sand. There's a lot in there, and then the water just kind of goes between the sand. And you may need to add water once you get the bubbles out, because that's going to shift everything around and get all the air out. So there will be more room for water at that point. just a tiny bit more to this one. And that one. All right, so I've wet the tip of this. Get these rims nice and clean. And I could go ahead and do my beef stew and put them in together, but I want to do the beef stew in quarts. So I'm just going to go ahead and process these like this. Because they take different amounts of time. Oops, already got one. Into the canner they go. And I should be able to tell the difference because this one's a lot more red, but I'm going to put all those on one side and all these that are plain on the other. And because there is so much space in here, I am actually going to roll up a towel and put it down between, and that will help keep the jars from moving around and falling over and breaking. All right, we're going to vent for 10 minutes. So here's a way to tell that you're ready to put your pressure gauge on before your timer runs out. Your pressure switch here has already come up and you have constant steam versus intermittent steam. That means all the air is out and it is already pressurizing. So now we just have to wait for it to get up to your 10 pounds of pressure. And again, I usually go more towards the 15 since I'm right there at that 1,000 feet above sea level. And then it's 75 minutes. Because this video is a little bit long, I'm going to break up the canning the beef into 3 videos. So this will be the end of day 1 canning hamburger, and then day 2 will be beef stew, and then day 3 we will come back and do the chop steak, just so it's easier for referencing as well as to make the video shorter. Thanks for watching.